Welcome to Connecting Africa. I'm Eleni Jarkas, and this month I've traveled to South Africa, to the port city of Durban, one of the most significant gateways into the continent, and this year it's hosting the Intra-Africa Trade Fair. $5,000 participants, 10,000 visitors, buyers from 55 countries makes this one of the most exciting places to be, and the whole aim is to secure $40 billion worth of trade and investment deals.
I can see the sun, I'm rising up, I feel the love now, oh it's in my vision.
People are very much interested in our products, but what is more important for a long term is to get buyers from all over the Africa countries.
Yeah, I'm coming here, check the commercial business, the contact.
We're here to meet up with the rest of the continent to just, build up our brand and just make business relations.
And it's telling me run, 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 don't give up.
You've come all the way from Ghana.
Yes, West Africa.
West Africa,
Yes.
and your big focus is shea.
Yes, promoting shea to the world and letting the world knows about the benefit of shea to the communities where they grow, the businesses that are in those communities, and most importantly, the environment.
So now you want to increase trade into Africa, right?
Yes.
You want Africans to consume these products.
Yes.
Okay.
So finished products of creams, soaps,
Yeah.
and other beauty things. I will show you this.
Yeah.
Excusez-moi. These are the kernels.
Oh wow, I've never seen these before.
Yes, these are the kernels that you process into a butter. I'll show you.
So listen, so here's the thing, Aaron. So a lot of these products we would just export in raw form and would get processed outside of Africa.
Yes.
The whole aim is to try and encourage more processing and final products out of these countries.
And consumption, processing and consumption.
Consumption, because we're not consuming as Africans,
exactly.
right? Okay.
We export, we produce about a million. We think about half of it is consumed in West Africa, then the other half is exported. Maybe half of that raw, like kernels like that, into Europe. But there are processing facilities coming up. A lot of them are already up in West Africa.
So tell me, why are you at the trade fair? Why did you come all the way to Durban? And what do you hope to achieve?
We brought 20 small businesses like B Universe Cosmetics to introduce them to the markets in Southern Africa as well as East Africa as part of promoting intra-Africa trade.
Alongside these business leaders from around the continent were some of South Africa's most dynamic entrepreneurs. The Kwena Group is involved with everything from energy to telecoms and financial services. Its CEO is Johan Appies.
The Kwena Group of companies is essentially a social enterprise. We're in business because we want to change communities for the better. We started off with petroleum, and we've developed a very diverse, focused group of companies supplying wholesale, supplying fleet, supplying equipment, supplying all auxiliary services within the petroleum industry. So on the African continent, we not only cover all products that you can supply, but also all the services, and we can do it continentally in any country that is required.
Like many people at the fair, he is optimistic about Africa's future.
So for us, we are not one that dwell on negativity. We only see potential. We are very excited about the potential for Africa. We believe in the the potential of Africa, its people, its resources, and we would like to play a very active role and change the way our companies operate in Africa and set a benchmark that I think others should follow.
He believes that increasing trade among African countries will benefit all businesses.
You know, I've traveled extensively in Africa, and I really welcome the agreement that is the backbone of this event, the Intra-Africa Trade Agreement. It's important for businesses in Africa to really start to wake up and to make that a reality. And that is how we're going to change Africa and the conditions on the ground of everyone. So I think this represents for us an opportunity to build relationships with other businesses in Africa and to make sure that together we can make the agreement a reality.
Africa is a vast continent, and I'm in Durban, South Africa. But to introduce you to our next guest, we need to travel 5,000 miles all the way to Morocco, to Casablanca, where we meet one of the most respected business leaders there.
Salua Kaki Belkaziz is a seriously impressive character. She began her career by creating her own tech company and is currently Africa president of IT giant Initum. Along the way, she's picked up many awards, including Businesswoman of the Year in Morocco. So where did this drive to succeed come from?
When I was little, my dream was to be an independent Moroccan woman, to be financially independent, and to have the power to make change around me. I started very young, at the age of 25, when I launched a company that specialized in information technology. I was a pioneer in the sector back at that time, and I'm talking about the end of the 80s. It was difficult for a woman to be accepted in such an embryonic sector that was dominated by men. I had to fight to get my first clients. The challenges were numerous, but with perseverance, hard work, I succeeded in developing my company.
She now works for Initum, where she is president of its Africa operations. It is an international group with a presence in 26 different countries. In 2020, it generated revenues in excess of $2.2 billion, and Africa plays a key role.
Our adventure in the African continent started in Morocco 10 years ago. We invested first in Ivory Coast, Tunisia, Cameroon, Senegal. We are physically based in 6 countries, and we cover the rest of the continent starting from those countries. We have more than 1,000 people deployed in the African continent.
She is very upbeat about the continent and the role technology can play in helping it to grow.
Africa is a rich continent with a lot of raw material and natural resources, and the digitalization, with all its applications, will help especially when it comes to agriculture and management structures. Digitalization is synonymous with transparency, which means that it will help fight corruption and install better governance.
She keeps a close eye on the continent, but also used the lockdown to write a book. In particular, she wants to inspire a new generation of businesswomen.
In my life, I took part in several international conferences where young women would come and tell us that there is a lack of female role models in their life. There are actually a lot of role models in Morocco, and the time has come to leave a lasting impression in their minds. There are plenty of role models in Morocco. We don't always need to look for them in other places or other cultures. So my aim with this book was to inspire them.
A very impressive woman with a bold vision, and she talks about a more connected Africa, something that everyone here is working towards.
Before we head to our next break, let's catch up with some more of the people at the fair.
Great to be here with the Nigerian
You're
friends.
most welcome. We're always happy to see you.
Okay, so oil is one of the most important commodities out of Nigeria.
Absolutely, and indeed, this is just one part of the of the larger oil industry.
And you're able to process this.
Yes, and this is being processed into engine oil, lubrication oil, things like that.
And Nigeria has always had a problem with truly processing oil, and now you're moving more into that, right?
We are moving all into that, as you know, apart from this, which has already been in operation for some time, we are also now going into bigger manufacturing capacities and the production of polypropylene and other petrochemical products. So the range of oil products is massive, and I think our expectation is that we'll continue to explore new opportunities in this sector, even as the oil industry itself seems to be going down.
Declining, exactly, but you want to capture as much of the value chain as absolutely possible.
Absolutely.
But Nigeria is trying to diversify its economy away from oil. You're trying to industrialize, right? That's the point.
Absolutely. And the issue really is to try and look at the value chains across industrial sectors, from, for instance, the textile industry, the leather industry, where we're looking at the entire value chain from cotton to yarn to fabric and to actually clothing.
How important is intra-Africa trade going to be for these Nigerian businesses?
It's critical because, frankly, if we can satisfy the African demand for that, for the next 10 years, we'll only export if we want to export, not because there's no market.
I love coming to Lagos. I love coming to Nigeria. Next time I see you, we'll see pan-African Nigerian businesses
Absolutely,
doing really well.
And you'll be surprised. Most of them will be below 30 years of age. Young people really with the drive, with enthusiasm to access the global market, but first the African market.
At the Intra-Africa Trade Fair in South Africa in the port city of Durban, and it's taking place over 7 days. It's filled with conversation, deal making in various sectors, from processing to the likes of arts and culture, and even the rise of entrepreneurship on the continent. And I took part in one panel discussion. It was a lively conversation, and we sat down with some of the guests after. Okay, so I'm curious. The Continental Free Trade Area is super exciting, and this means we can increase trade across the continent. How likely is it that we can pull this piece of policy off into reality?
Well, you know, what gives me comfort is this is an initiative that's been decades in the making. We've been talking about a continental African economic community for decades. And for us to get to this point where we can actually sign and ratify this very groundbreaking agreement.
How close are we to getting harmonization?
Actually, you'd be surprised. There's a number of very interesting developments. One-stop border posts. There have been quite a few of those across the region that have been gaining ground. And we've also seen a lot of simplification of cross-border controls. Roadblocks were very common some years ago. Today, many roadblocks have been lifted.
Why are you here, and what role does Believe in Africa have at a trade fair?
I've been a big advocate for intra-Africa trade out of Washington. I've been writing a lot about the Continental Free Trade Agreement, the potential job creation, and encouraging the African diaspora to invest more in the continental trade area. So that's why I'm here, and I'm looking forward to engage with more people like you, looking at all the exhibit, the African SMEs that are showcasing their product, and also look at the creative industry.
I want you to tell me a little bit about the African Women for Innovation and Entrepreneurship Forum and what you have achieved and what you're hoping to achieve.
We are a Pan-African organization, non-profit, and what we do is that we drive women leadership and women entrepreneurship on the continent. We work to close the gender gaps in entrepreneurship in Africa.
Have you seen an impact of your efforts?
Thousands of them. So far since we started, AWIF was started in 2015. Then in 2017, we started developing these programs. And so far we have directly trained more than 2,000 women businesses. And these businesses have gone ahead to scale, creating jobs.
Do you think that the Continental Free Trade Area has the potential to truly transform the economies of the continent if we implement correctly?
Yeah, I'm a strong believer of the continental market. because when you look at the investment flow in the continent, especially from the US side, when you talk to investors, they tend to tell you, oh, the project is too small, you want to talk to 25 million plus investment. So sometimes it was very difficult for us to encourage foreign direct investment, especially from the US side, because the project was too small. So now they can really look at real project.
Scalable, right? And
scalable.
It's cross-border.
Cross-borders when we really create that integration, because right now the legal framework is established.
What are the biggest gaps that you are helping fill?
Yeah, one of the biggest gaps is the skills gap. And because of this...
Is that the biggest problem, not money?
Yeah, money is a problem, but if you give money to somebody who is not skilled, who cannot manage business, that money is wasted.
Yeah.
So you start with skills. And because of the importance, because of that vision, we have just recently become signatory to the IFC's Principles of Learning. It's an international benchmark, of learning that must be sustainable, impactful, inclusive, and scalable. So you design learning systems, learning skills, entrepreneurship skills that must address these 4 issues, because when they cannot scale after the learning, it's not it. When it's not sustainable, it's not it. If it doesn't have impact in their business, in their communities, and in making them create jobs, and other things, it's not it. And then it must be inclusive.
Are we going to see any fundamental big changes and shifts in the way we trade in Africa?
Well, I can tell you from my own experience, I've been presiding over a trade finance operation, among other things, and we've seen huge growth in cross-border business between, for instance, Morocco and Ethiopia. We've done almost $500 million of trade between those two countries.
Right? This is since
two, 3 years old.
Okay.
3 years old. And we've also seen huge investments coming from South Africa into the DR Congo, into Rwanda, into Zimbabwe, into Ethiopia. And we've been part of those projects. We've seen South African corporates really pull up their sleeves and start investing across borders.
What is the next few steps that the private sector can take to ensure that it is successfully implemented?
The thing the private sector can really be helpful is educating the mass, educating all the stakeholders on the potential.
African countries have a plethora of commodities, but oil and gas has been traded for many decades by countries like Nigeria, that is the largest producer on the continent, and now its smaller neighbor Ghana is capitalizing on their finds.
At the heart of its industry is Tullow, founded in 1985 as a gas exploration business operating in Senegal. It now has a significant presence throughout the continent.
So Africa's oil and gas business is a really interesting one, and I think it's a story of opportunity. About 40 to 50% of the world's total natural resources actually sit in Africa. And a large portion of that is made up of oil and gas. Of course, mining and other things occupy some of that space. But the short story is that Africa has the first step you need in any kind of energy business, which is it has a lot of resources. We were here as a company in the mid-2000s. We feel quite proud of the fact that as a company, Tullow took a bet on a basin and a sector in a country where the oil and gas sector didn't exist. And we're very thankful that that bet materialized into commercial quantities of oil and gas. Tullow is not historically an operating company. It was an exploration company. It's a company that found new quantities of oil and gas around the world. In the last 2 years, however, as a company, Tullow's realized that there's a lot of growth and future success opportunity in becoming a very capable operator. And over the last particularly 18 months, we've turned around operational performance on both the Jubilee and 10 fields.
we've really taken them from a place where facility reliability, safe reliability of production, and the cost of production was amongst the lowest compared to other benchmarks in the world, to being very much top tier in the last 18 months. So we feel that there's somewhere in the range of 2.6 billion barrels of oil remaining in place between Jubilee and 10. On Jubilee, we've only produced about 15%, 16% of the oil in place, and on 10, it's about 8%. Industry standards tell you fields like this, we should be able to produce anywhere near the range of 40 to 50% of total recovery. So there's a lot more oil to go. We need goods and services. We certainly don't do anything ourselves, and it's an industry that relies on an effective, efficient, and low-cost supply chain. And as you look around Africa as a continent, you can have line of sight to that effective, reliable, low-cost, and highly talented supply chain when you take a more continent view. You may look in certain countries and that supply chain won't exist there, but as you look around the continent, you're able to access that supply chain through other countries in the continent to help develop the resources within a different country in the continent. And Pan-African trade and Pan-African trade agreements facilitate that, and is very much a fuel for any company to be able to help grow the resource development and benefit the countries in which those resources exist. I see significant investment. With that, I see significant, as I said, larger perhaps oil and gas players coming out, but being replaced by smaller, more entrepreneurial, more nimble, more agile, more collaborative companies like Tullow. I see that space very much being occupied in Africa. I see a real boom in talent that's brought about by this boom in resource development, because the continent has some of the most capable, skilled, intelligent, well-educated, and dare I say, aspirational people in the world. And I see a lot of them coming up to really run this industry no matter what part of the value chain they work in. So very exciting future for the continent in oil and gas, and we look forward to being part of it at Tullow.
Some very interesting observations from a major player in a fast-moving industry, and it's been a fascinating few days here at the Intra-Africa Trade Fair. And the people that I've spoken to have incredible dreams for the continent, and trade forms part of those dreams. So I'll leave it to them to sign those multi-billion-dollar deals. From me and Lenny Jokas here in Durban, it's goodbye.